In this week's Theme Deck Tuesday, we're having a look at the Imperial Command theme deck, which is of course featuring Empoleon once again. This has an overall good matchup spread across the board against pretty much every theme deck. Now, I do only have one match for you to show the deck off, but it does show off very well as it was a very close match. As always, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and also leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on this theme deck. Let's take a look at the Imperial Command theme deck then, shall we? This is the theme deck featuring Empoleon. It is of course the Imperial Penguin, and we have seen a very successful theme deck in the past featuring Empoleon, and that is the Unseen Depths theme deck. I'll leave a link to that video and deck profile down below, as that is a very popular and successful deck. But this one is doing something a little bit different, but is still very effective at it. With that total command attack for 2 energy, you deal 20 damage for each Pokemon that is on both players' bench. So if both players have 5 bench Pokemon, that's going to be 10, and that's going to be a total of 200 damage. So a lot of damage, able to knock out every Pokemon in theme deck format, which is very effective and definitely what you want. The only downside is that your opponent can control the amount of bench Pokemon that they have on their side of the board. That will reduce the damage by a considerable amount, but in most theme deck matches you are going to be seeing that you have to fill up your bench because you have a lot of support Pokemon, you have a lot of backup attackers you need to get going, so people typically do fill their bench up, and that's going to allow you to deal more than enough damage to get all of the knockouts that you need. Even if you're not doing the maximum 200, you're typically doing 140 and upwards, which is enough to get those knockouts. You do have a second attack here for 3 energy, a little bit too expensive for my liking, but you do get to discard energy from the defending Pokemon, which could be useful in a situation where you need to stall. The other key attacker in the deck is the Buizel here, mainly for the agility here, as you do get to deal 30 damage for 1 energy, and on a coin flip you get to become immune. We've seen this in other successful theme decks like the Relentless Flame theme deck with that Rapidash, which also has agility just like this. Exact same effect, but it does slightly more damage on the Rapidash. This is good because it is for the single energy. Also has the Aqua Blast attack, which deals 80. This could be good for finishing something off if you've been using agility a couple of times. And then for support Pokemon, we do have a couple of Sandslash here, which allows us to just straight up draw a card with that Slush Rush ability, which is very nice. And we also have the Abomasnow, which is like Aqua Patch, which we do also play a couple of copies of Aqua Patch in the Steam deck, but the ability allows you to get energy from the discard pile onto one of your bench Pokemon, so very good for getting extra energy attachments. And then also early game, getting set up, we have the Fion, or not Fion, Manaphy. I think I kept calling it Fion, as you'll see in the matches, but it's not Fion, it's Manaphy that we have here, and we also have a Corsola. Call family, very good for getting 2 basic Pokemon into play onto your bench, and also the Manaphy is good for Water Pulse. Just dealing that 20 and then putting the defending Pokemon to sleep is very nice bonus. And then we have a good selection of trainer cards here as well. Like I mentioned, the Aqua Patch is going to allow you to get that extra energy attachment. Sad that we only have one of those, but it is going to be useful, I can assure you. And also something like the Rescue Stretcher to get Pokemon back, so you can get 2 Empoleon set up, 1 gets knocked out, and then use the Rescue Stretcher here to shuffle 3 Pokemon in, so you fit the entire Empoleon line into the deck. And then the supporter cards are pretty good. Fan Club, we've also got 2 Kukui, which is excellent for boosting your damage. And then the timer balls are very good for getting your evolution Pokemon out, since we do primarily have evolution Pokemon here. So we do only have one battle like I mentioned, but it is a very long one and a very close matchup for sure. As we were both taking our time to get set up, we were having a little bit of difficulty on both sides of the board to get set up actually, so it was a very interesting one. I won't spoil it, but definitely watch until the end of the match, as it was a real toss-up for who was going to win that one. Hopefully you enjoy it either way, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Our first game here is against the Soaring Storm Dragonite deck, so we're going to be looking to get some of our backup attackers like the Weasel and also of course the Empoleon. That is a primary attacker here, but we do have a couple of good cards here in the terms of supporter cards. You definitely like to see those early game in a theme deck match. And we do have some good options here. Being able to hit for 20 damage for 1 energy is actually pretty efficient on a basic, and getting that added bonus of putting the defending Pokemon to sleep could be very useful in preventing my opponent from being able to set up here with the Alolan Grimer. They're going to be looking to get some of their basics into play, but it looks like they don't have anything that they can make use of here, so they are just going to be using the Collect from that Grimer. We're going to start off with a Pokemon Fan Club, start thinning the deck of some of our Pokemon that we want in play. I think we'll get another Piplup, and we'll also get this guy so that we can get, of course, the Sandslash into play as quickly as possible. So it seems like some good options here. And then I will actually attach to the active and start hitting for that 20 damage. Chip away at the Grimer and hopefully get a knockout sooner rather than later. They do unfortunately wake up from the sleep. That's a bit of a shame. Don't really want them drawing more cards, but we'll have to see off of the 2 cards that they got there as well as their top deck, did they get anything useful. Bugcatcher does draw 2 the cards, so you could get something off of that, but really they are just needing more basic Pokemon in play here, particularly the Dragonite evolution line. Maybe some Pidgeotos as well, those allow them to draw cards. So any kind of combination of those. There we see the Pokemon communication, that is going to allow them to get the Pokemon that they want. They did have to put a Dragonite back into the deck though, so we know that they don't have that readily available at the moment. And they're going to be grabbing a Tornadus, which is an interesting choice. I guess they just want to start attacking as quickly as possible, and that certainly gives them a Pokemon that they can attach energy onto. But in my opinion, I definitely would have went for a Dratini there, or something of the likes. We'll go for the Hop or How in this situation, and see if we get anything off of it. We do get another Sandshrew. We'll go for a Timer Ball as well, hoping for the double heads here. We do get 1, I'll take that. We could get Prinplup since we have Empoleon in our hand, but I kind of like just getting the Sandslash down. That's going to allow us to start drawing through our deck nicely. It is only 1 card at a time, but it is better than nothing, so I'll take it. And I'm going to put this energy onto a Piplup. Let's see what card we draw off the top. Okay, an Escape Rope's not bad. That could come in useful. And we'll just go and attack for 20 once again. See what my opponent has for us. They do stay asleep as well, which is excellent. That means that they're not going to be able to draw more cards unless they get a switch. So let's see what they get here. Are they able to get a Dratini this turn? That is going to be the key here for them getting set up, as they've had an extremely slow start, which is definitely what you want to see when you're up against the Soaring Storm deck. You're going to be continuing to attach energy onto that benched Tornadus, which definitely makes sense as they want an attacker here, and they do finally get a supporter, but they're going to be switching rather than drawing cards, so they actually want to just protect their Grimer and try and stall out for a little bit. So on our end, we're going to be attaching energy again, I think, onto the Piplup, potentially the Weasel. I suppose we could Sophocles first to just see what we draw. So we'll go with that. We'll draw all of our cards before deciding where we want to attach any energy. That makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll go for a Sophocles, discarding our 2 Pokemon here. Don't really need them at the moment, and we get to draw 4 cards. That's a bit of a shame, no Prinplup, but we do get the energy attachment somewhere, so I think we'll just attach it onto the other Piplup that we have, and we'll continue to attack for 20 damage. If my opponent has a switch on this following turn as well as an energy, they are going to be able to attack with that Tornadus, which is going to be good for them to start taking some knockouts here and put them ahead, since we've also been struggling to find the evolutions on our side of the board. So perhaps with that Timer Ball I should have taken a Prinplup. That would allow us to have an Empoleon and hit back at our opponent once they do take a knockout with the Tornadus. We'll have to see if they go for that route, because that would certainly benefit them greatly in terms of putting them ahead in prizes. They would take the first prize of the game. They get a Cynthia here, but it just looks like a pass, so they don't get the switch, which is definitely what I want to see. And we do get our Weasel down here, which is excellent, as it does have the agility, of course. And I might actually attach here for the Aqua Blast, just in case I want to make use of that. So we'll go ahead and attach there, and let's Pokemon Fan Club. Sure, we can't play down any of these Pokemon, but it is going to give us a little bit of a better draw overall. So we'll take these out of the deck before using our Sand Splash. See what we draw here. Again, no Prinplup, but we do get an Skateboard. I believe that this is a 2 retreat cost, so we have to put the Skateboard somewhere else, which is a little unfortunate. Could also potentially play an Escape Rope, but I'm not quite sure how that would benefit us, because my opponent will just put up the other Grimer. So I will instead just continue to attack my opponent. They do wake up from the sleep, so they're going to be able to use that Collect once again. And they're just going to be stalling out here, I reckon. They don't really need to do anything much more, since they do have an attacker powered up now. All they can do is collect over and over again and draw through their deck. Very surprising that they haven't found any pieces of the Dragonite line, apart from that Dragonite early on, but they did have to get rid of that with the Pokemon Communication. And like I said, we do see another Collect from my opponent. Let's go ahead and start drawing some more cards. We do get that Prinplup, which is very good. That's what we're looking for here. So we can get that into play. We do just need a energy for it now, the Empoleon anyway. And we do get a support card from the deck. That's going to be allowing us to draw 3 more cards. And we do get another Sand Slash. So it's going to be drawing us 2 cards every single turn, with no downsides whatsoever, which is very good, and that's going to benefit us very well, since we did draw into the second Prinplup. So we're in an excellent position now. We just need to find ourselves some energy, and I definitely don't mind just hitting into my opponent with our Fion here, building up some damage and potentially getting a knockout at some point on this Grimer, as it is going to be a liability at this point in the game. We do have a bunch of supporters as well, probably going to use Sophocles, discarding the Lily and something else, since our hand is so big. We're not going to be making use of Lily at this stage in the game. My opponent opting not to put down any Dratini whatsoever, so I'm guessing they haven't found any, and they're just going to be filling their bench with other attackers. That double Grimer setup, making it very difficult for my opponent to have any options for putting down those Dratini. And yeah, they are just going to be sacrificing this Grimer, opting to use Collect once again, and we can put our double Empoleon into play. Oops, my mistake there. And yep, we are going to be using our Sophocles. First of all, we'll discard the Lily, like I mentioned, and we can also get rid of a Snover. I think we do have the Rescue Stretcher if we need to get any Pokemon back. Unfortunate that we don't find any energy just yet, but we do have an Ultra Ball that we can work with if we need it. Don't really need it right now though, so we are just going to draw 2 with our Sand Splash, and there's the energy that we're looking for. It's going to be very good, and shame that we don't get another energy, but we do have the energy required here to get Empoleon set up perfectly. Could also attach the skateboard somewhere, I guess, putting on to like a Weasel here. I'll go with that. We don't really need it down, but it's just nice to get it out of the hand, so we have that option available to retreat. And we're going to be attacking and knocking out this Grimer, finally taking the first prize. What is this, like turn 6, 7? Ridiculously high amount of turns here. Very slow game, but it is going to pay off in our favour, I reckon, considering how much setup we are compared to our opponent, and how large our hand is as well. Sure, my opponent does have a large hand. They now get the Pidgeotto, which is going to allow them to draw a card. Technically they are drawing 2 cards, but only one of them goes into their hand, so they are seeing more cards overall than us, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem, because we are still having a good amount of draw on our side. there is the Dratini coming down, so finally my opponent gets that Dratini. They can start working towards a Dragonite, but they do have a good amount of energy in play already, and it should serve them well to get a couple of attacks off here, at least knocking out this Theon. They also get to spread a bunch of damage across our board. I think I will promote a Empoleon. Well, I mean, we can promote the Buizel first here since it does have a free retreat, but I'm most likely going to be putting up the Empoleon so that we can get an easy knockout here. We do have a lot of options here with our energy, so we can attach to the Empoleon. We can draw 2 more cards, and definitely just looking to get some more energy here. As always, the struggle with this deck is just how slowly you're forced to attach energy and get that into play. We could also get an Abomasnow out, that could be useful, so I'll put down the Snover for now, and then I will retreat and get our knockout here. Don't really want to use Kukui because we might need that for additional damage, and there's no reason to draw cards at the moment, so we'll go and get our knockout, dealing the maximum damage that we can, 200 damage to this Tornadus, which is one of the highest amounts of damage in the theme format. And there is the Abomasnow that we just pulled off of the prizes, so very good timing in getting that Grover into play. Grover? It's not Grover, Snover. Don't know why I said Grover there. I'm sure that's a character from something if I'm not mistaken, but anyway, going off topic here, we got our Snover down, we got the Abomasnow off of the prizes. That's going to allow us to get that extra energy in play from the discard pile, as you can see there. That's definitely going to allow us to power up the Abomasnow itself, or if we want to start getting a third Empoleon into play, which we most likely will have to do here, as my opponent has the Thunderous. They're also able to get the evolution here, the Dragonair, and they will be able to get the Dragonite on that following turn, assuming of course that they can find it from their deck. They're also going to be using the item card there to get an energy out of the discard pile, and also get an attachment onto the Thunderous, so they can attack us for a knockout. But since we have that backup Empoleon, we're just going to be promoting that to get an easy knockout here, and of course using our Rescue Stretcher to shuffle in this Empoleon line, which is about to get knocked out. So here we go, my opponent is declaring the attack. Of course they have to decide where they want to damage on their own side of the board, because they are going for that attack from the looks of things. I suppose they do have to, but they are hitting us for a weakness, so I'm pretty sure the first attack would have been fine, or perhaps not. Now, of course, they needed the Tornadus, but we already took that out, so they did have to go for that second attack and damage their own board, and I can't complain with that at all. We'll put up our other Empoleon, like I said, and definitely want to Rescue Stretcher here, shuffle in that entire Empoleon line so that we can get it back into play relatively soon here. So we'll definitely do that. We'll get a Ultra Ball use here, I reckon. We'll definitely discard 2 of our Pokemon that we're not going to need. Probably just going to be these 2 Corsola. And we can search for the Piplup. We do have the full line here with an extra Piplup, which is fine. Didn't realise that we had that, but that's no problem. We can still make use of the cards that we do have. Let's go for the Abomasnow, put that energy onto our Piplup here. And we can also get an attachment down. There's not really anywhere else that we want to do it, but I suppose we can put it onto the Abomasnow. We could potentially draw a couple of cards here. We do still have over 10 cards left in our deck, so I don't mind drawing a couple of extra cards just to thin the deck a little and make sure that we're going to get towards that next Empoleon. And we'll go for an attack here. We do have 1 bench Pokemon missing since my opponent hasn't played 1 down, but we're still dealing more than enough damage. 180 is certainly going to get the knockout on that Thunderous. And we are going to have to deal with the Lantern now, which is able to hit us for weakness. Since we do already have damage counters on us, that is going to be enough to get the knockout here, since we do have 140 HP remaining. And this Lantern deals 70 damage as a base, with the weakness is going to be exactly 140. So we're going to have to deal with that somehow. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it. Potentially trying to use an agility on a Buizel could be a route. The other option is an Aqua Blast with a Kukui, but we are still going to be short if we go for that. So perhaps just an agility. Alternatively, I guess we could use a Piplup, or this attack does 20 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay, that could be useful. If we need to finish something off, like the Grimer, the Pidgeotto, could actually be useful for sniping something. So I think we will go for the Aqua Blast on the Buizel, and we'll use the Kukui to get that extra damage in. Alternatively, we could also use a Escape Rope, which could force up something from my opponent, but they do have the Dragonite in play, which they'll most likely just promote so that they can survive the hit there. Interesting, they are attaching to a Pidgeotto rather than the Dragonite, which is certainly a better attacker overall, but they are going to be making use of the ability as well here. Definitely need to accelerate that water and lightning energy, and they are going to be accelerating it onto the Dragonite here, which makes sense with me. Going to mean that the Dragonite is near enough ready to start attacking on this following turn because it can accelerate energy onto itself once again. And here is the Lantern coming in for the knockout. Like I mentioned, getting the precise knockout required thanks to weakness, and even if they didn't have weakness, they could have discarded energy and knocked us out that way. So we'll promote our Buizel here and definitely use our Kukui straight away since we're definitely going to be using it. We do get the Prinplup, which is nice. We do need to find that next the next Piplup in case we need to use that sniping attack that I mentioned. I will continue to attach to a Abomasnow though, that seems reasonable. And to be fair, we do have the agility, not that one, but on the Buizel, the agility could come in useful if we get a couple of heads. So perhaps it is worth putting down a second Buizel here. Don't really want to draw too many more cards since we are running quite low on our deck. So we'll leave it there and we'll just go for the Aqua Blast. Deal 100 damage, a little short of a knockout, but we are pretty close. We shouldn't be too far behind, but it's going to be a very close game for sure. My opponent can get a knockout here, then we can go in with the agility, hopefully flip aheads and protect ourselves for the following turn. Or alternatively, we go in with like an escape rope, we could use a Piplup. We have a couple of options, which is good. That's the main thing that you want to see here, is having options. My opponent going for the Pokemon Communication. That's going to shuffle a Pokemon back into the deck and grab one out of the deck. Let's see what they go for. Is it going to be the Pidgeot? Is it going to be the second Dragonite? No, it just looks like it's a Lantern. So they're just thinning the deck there, looking to get some better draws, I'm guessing. They are able to use the Pidgeotto there, which is going to allow them to draw another card. They still have a considerably bigger deck than us, more than twice as big actually, so they are definitely not worried about decking out, whereas we are on our side for sure. We have to win in the next couple of turns. My opponent has that Dragonite that they're going to be accelerating energy with, putting it onto the bench here, which makes sense, and also powering up that Thundurus, which is going to be a great attacker for them, since it does a lot of damage in general, but also just hitting us for weakness is very strong. There's the attack from my opponent. They're going to be getting a knockout like I mentioned, discarding that energy to deal 140, and now it's going to be on us to flip some heads here, picking up the Buizel and using agility to try and become immune for a couple of turns at least. That's the plan anyway. I think we will draw potentially one card. I mean, it's not going to be worth it. We want as many turns here as possible, so probably shouldn't be drawing cards. I think we'll hold off on it for now, and we'll just go for the agility, get that knockout, and join my opponent on 2 prizes remaining. That sucks. We get a Tails on the agility, meaning that my opponent can get a knockout on a Buizel, and we're going to be forced to find an Empoleon on this following turn so that we can get some big damage in and take some knockouts. My opponent promotes the Thundurus, like I said, they can get a knockout, so anything that they promote that has an attack that deals enough damage is going to get a knockout for them, and they're able to just continue their game plan, use those Dragonites since they now have both of those Dragonites in play to accelerate 4 energy every turn, as well as the 5th energy that they can attach from their hand, and that Pidgeotto again drawing cards every turn. So they were able to stabilize after an extremely slow start, but that's also because our deck is quite slow to set up and has some low damage in the early game. So we did help them out a little bit, but there's not much that we could do there since our deck doesn't allow us to deal a whole lot of damage in the early game. We're very much focused on the mid to late game, or just, as soon as we can get Empoleon set up, as well, as we did see we were able to get it set up fairly effectively, and it did put in some work, but we're certainly on the back foot now. I think that's where this deck really falls down. It's super fun to play, dealing huge amount of damage with the Empoleon, trying to get lucky with the agility, but once your opponent gets set up and their deck does what it's supposed to do, then you really struggle to actually get going and stay in the game, or even make a comeback in the game, and it's a case of going ahead on prizes or losing with this deck, which is very unfortunate, but it's just the way that these older decks goes. And like I mentioned, this is on the cusp of when the themes decks started getting good, so that is just the way that things were, unfortunately. Let's promote our Prinplup, and we'll go for the Timer Ball, I suppose. Try and get some heads here and find our Empoleon. There he is. We have a handful of cards left in the deck, one of which, of course, being the Aqua Patch. I suppose, like I said, we can use the Piplup to snipe, so we'll put that into play. Also boosts our bench damage, I suppose. And yeah, we don't want to deck out, nothing else to do here, so we'll just go for the attack and get a big knockout on that Thunderous. Going down to a single prize here, but my opponent does have the Dragonite, so it's going to be very easy for them to get a knockout as they deal 170 damage, and Empoleon only has 160, unfortunately. That is going to be the game for my opponent. They're going to be us a little bit here, playing out their hand, evolving their Pokemon when they really don't need to, as they already have the knockout with the energy that's on play on the Dragonite. But that's fine. If you want to show off, you do use your time. I'll sit and be patient, don't you worry. Hopefully you've enjoyed this match, and I think this is pretty much as good as we're going to get, as this was a very close game, and it just so happened that my opponent was able to make an effective comeback.